What's up, my peoples? Welcome back to another episode of The Wheel Life. My name is John, and on today's episode, I am going to talk about tattoos and spinal cord injuries. You know, my love for tattoos started at a very young age. I think I must have been about 5 years old when I first caught the tattoo bug, and I fully blame my Uncle Morris for this. Because I remember when I was just a kid and he used to come down from Rhode Island to visit my grandma who lived with us. And he had all these cool, like, old school sailor tattoos all over his arms. And I remember just being absolutely mesmerized by his tattoos. And from that moment on, as a wee kid, I could not wait until I was old enough that I could get tattooed. And when I was 16 years old, my mother, my awesome wild mother, took me all the way to Connecticut across state lines to get my first tattoo when I was 16 years old. And after that first tattoo, I was hooked. So I got my first tattoo at the young, tender age of 16 years old. And about a year later, I was paralyzed and left a quadriplegic with a spinal cord injury. And after my spinal cord injury, I wasn't sure if I was able to get tattooed again. But to my relief, I found out that getting tattooed with a spinal cord injury is really not that big a deal, but there are some differences and there are some things that you need to be aware of while getting tattooed with a spinal cord injury. So on today's episode of The Wheel Life, I want to share with you all my 10 tips for getting tattooed with a spinal cord injury. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's go. So my first tip would have to be to make sure that you scope out your potential tattoo shop and have a consultation with your potential artist before getting tattooed. So the first thing you want to do when you are looking to get tattooed, in my opinion, is to do your research. And when you find a reputable shop, you're gonna want to go and check it out before you even make the appointment. You need to call the shop and say, look, I want to get tattooed here. When would be a good time for me to come in, to check out the shop, to check out the artist, and to check out the artist's work? And doing this is good for a number of reasons. One, you can see just how accessible the tattoo shop really is, because you can call ahead and you can say, hey, is this shop wheelchair accessible? And sometimes with able-bodied persons, their definition of accessible is completely different than what actually accessible. It's also good because you can see how clean the shop is. When you go in, you want to make sure that it's a nice, clean, sterile environment. And 3, you can chat with your artist, you can meet with him, you can talk about your design, and you can also inform them of your unique needs as someone with a spinal cord injury. Okay, so you've met with your artist, you found a solid, clean, and reputable shop. What you want to do next is you want to make sure that you are not on any medications that cause your blood to be thin. You know, when I was newly injured, I used to be on a medication called Coumadin. It was a blood thinner. And every time I wanted to get tattooed, I had to make sure that I stopped this medication about 48 hours prior to getting my tattoo done. Because the last thing you want to do is go into a shop, have them start needling you, and then you're gushing blood all over the place. So what you want to do is go over your medication list. You can even talk to your doctor, and they will be able to tell you what to do if you are on blood thinners of any kind. Tip number 3, depending on where you get tattooed on your body, you want to watch out for areas that might cause autonomic dysreflexia. I've talked about in other videos what autonomic dysreflexia is, but just a reminder, it is your body's way of telling you that something is wrong in an area where you cannot feel. So if I took a knife and stabbed myself in the leg, which I can't feel, my blood pressure is going to shoot through the roof, I'm going to start getting real sick, and it has a potential to be very deadly. You can have a stroke and have a whole other numerous amount of bad things happen. So you want to be careful of autonomic dysreflexia. So if you have a high level spinal cord injury, you know that autonomic dysreflexia, it is triggered by pain caused in areas where you cannot feel. And obviously tattoos cause a great deal of pain. So if you get tattooed in an area where you cannot feel, you run the risk of triggering autonomic dysreflexia. But it's important to note that everybody's body reacts differently. So I might trigger autonomic dysreflexia in myself in a certain area while I'm getting tattooed, and you might not. But it's important to be aware of the risks. And if you happen to start getting autonomic dysreflexia while you're getting tattooed, make sure you listen to your body and tell your artist to stop until your autonomic dysreflexia calms down. Like I said, with a spinal cord injury, different parts of your body react differently when you are getting tattooed. So another thing that you want to be aware of, which is my tip number 4, is that if you get tattooed on an area below your level of injury, those areas, they tend to heal much slower than an area above your level of injury. So if you think about it, a tattoo is actually an open wound. It's a beautiful open wound, but it's an open wound nonetheless. And just like pressure sores or cuts that happen in our lower extremities below our level of injury take a long time to heal due to our slower circulation, so does a tattoo take longer to heal when we get it done on an area that is lower than our level of injury. So we have to keep that in mind. Another aspect you want to be aware of while getting tattooed, and this is tip number 5, is you want to be aware of your spasms. Pain, which tattoos cause, can trigger your body to spasm. So you want to be aware of that, and you want to let your artist know that you have a potential to start flailing. The last thing you want to do is be in the middle of a tattoo and your limbs start bouncing around and dancing all around and cause very crooked lines in your very permanent tattoo. That's not a good look. Look, the intensity of your spasms will be different for everyone, and maybe you won't have spasms at all, but if you are easily prone to spasms, that's something you want to be very careful of. You know, I have heard of people with spinal cord injuries literally tying their limbs down while getting tattooed, or having a friend come with them and hold their limbs down so they don't mess up their tattoo while spasming. Be aware of that, be aware of your spasms, and listen to your body. So you've thought all these things through, now it's the day of your tattoo appointment and you are pumped. And that leads me to tip number 6. And this tip goes for really whether you have a spinal cord injury or you don't have one. This can go for either one. You want to make sure that you eat before your appointment and that you are very hydrated prior to your appointment. So you're gonna want to make sure that you eat something that is high in protein. Why? Because protein helps promote healing, and it's a good idea to start the healing process before you even start the actual tattoo. You're also gonna want to stay hydrated, but not just with any liquids. It's best to avoid drinking caffeine, and it's best to avoid drinking any kind of alcohol before your tattoo appointment. You want to remember that water is your best friend. When you keep yourself hydrated, you know, it will make your skin firmer and it will make your skin less likely to bleed, and it will just make the overall tattoo experience that much better. Since it's important while getting a tattoo to make sure you are extra hydrated, that means your bladder is going to be extra full and you're going to want to have to take a tinkle that much more. So another tip that I have for those with a spinal cord injury is when you have a longer tattoo session, you want to be aware of when you need to stop and empty your bladder. So you want to let your artist know that you might need a bathroom break or two throughout your tattoo appointment, and it's probably a good idea to catheterize yourself or empty your leg bag prior to the appointment starting. My 8th tip is to wear something comfortable. Look, for most tattoos, you're gonna be sitting there a while and it can get painful and uncomfortable. So why add to the uncomfortableness by wearing something tight and restricting and not comfortable? Throw on your sweats and relax while you're getting stabbed with a needle. So you've followed all my tips, you've gotten tattooed, you're hydrated, and now you're on your way home with your first successful tattoo post-injury. Tip number 9 is to make sure, for the love of goodness, to keep your tattoos clean. One of the most important things that you need to do, whether you have spinal cord injury or not, is to keep those tattoos nice and clean. We often forget that tattoos are literally just open wounds. And open wounds, if not taken care of and not kept clean, are breeding grounds for infections. So listen to your artist's directions on how to care for your tattoo and to keep that beautiful wound nice and clean. And follow those directions to a T, and you will be successful at getting tattooed. My last and final tip is to simply just enjoy the process. For many, including myself, tattoos can be a very therapeutic process. One of the first things I wanted to do when I came home post-injury was to get tattooed again. And I always looked forward to getting back in the shop and getting another tattoo. For me, my tattoos, they tell stories of resilience, of my family, and of my faith. And they also have given me so much more self-confidence in my appearance post-injury. So you know what? Enjoy it. It's like going to a painful spa. So ladies and gentlemen, those are my 10 tips on getting tattooed with a spinal cord injury. I hope if you're newly injured, I hope this helped give you confidence that you are able to get tattooed. I hope this gave you some good tips on how to get tattooed. And even if you are not a spinal cord injured person, maybe this helped raise some awareness that we have to do everything just a little bit different than a normal person. I'd like for you to tell me in the comments how many of you have been tattooed post-injury and what is your tattoo of? I would love to chat with you. I would love to hear what you've gotten, and I just think it's great to build this community together. So if this video added value to your life, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and share the video with someone you think it might help. And if you want me to make a video explaining what my tattoos mean and showing what they are, leave it in the comments below and I will do that for you. I hope everyone's staying safe. I hope you're keeping the faith, and I will check back with you in another video soon. God bless. Let's go.